You're posting, you're speaking, you're doing everything they told you would grow your business. So why is it not converting? Because visibility is only half the equation. Getting attention is easy. Turning that attention into clients takes strategy. VoiceLab was built to solve that. This is where front-end visibility meets back-end conversion. You learn how to get on stages, create your own platforms, and use podcasts, summits, and workshops to grow your audience and generate real leads. Then you learn what most people never build. A system that captures those leads, follows up, nurtures relationships, and turns interest into revenue. Email and newsletter strategy that actually gets responses. Workflows, not just more noise. Real connection that leads to real business. Inside VoiceLab, you are not guessing. You're learning the how. You're implementing in real time. You're building a business that works even when you are not constantly chasing attention. Because here's the truth. If you don't have visibility, no one knows you exist. If you don't have systems, nothing converts. VoiceLab gives you both, so you can stop performing for attention and start building momentum that pays you back. If you are ready to grow your authority, expand your reach, and finally turn visibility into income, join the VoiceLab. Scan the QR code, join VoiceLab Group on the School platform, and build the business that actually works.
I'm glad you're here. It's an honor to be here, and the cool people you meet. I got to meet Frank in person, so that was a cool thing. I have seen him online for many, many years in the Zoom room where it happens at Speaker's Playhouse. You never know what's going to happen when you say yes. And when you just step into that glory and get to meet somebody and get to engage, it's great conversation. And the good thing is he's a comedian. So no matter what you talk about, there's always a little laugh after, because you need that, because some of these subjects are a bit heavy, bit crazy, but let's get to it. I'm glad you guys are here to get that fantastic TEDx experience today and learn all the good, juicy tidbits that happen behind the scenes, what really happens and what you really need to know and do. This is all about land and leverage a TEDx talk. And you know what? This is why I do what I do, because getting on the stage, connecting with people, if you open the room, you turn on your camera and you turn on your mic and you say hello, and we get to have these great conversations to truly build relationships and not be boring and not be alone, but really build a great community of people you know, like, and trust, and have those referrals. Those of you who don't know me, I'm Nicole Borghi. I work with entrepreneurs to use the stage as a marketing machine. Why? Because this is how you get seen and heard. So let's get into today, and it's my honor to share Frank King, the suicide prevention speaker, a writer for The Tonight Show for 20 years. Oh, what a ton of laughs. And I bet you know the juicy stuff behind the scenes, and has been a full-time speaker and comedian for 40 years. And his speaking is informed by his lifetime of major depressive disorder and chronic suicidal ideation, and coming close enough to ending his life that he can tell you what the barrel of a gun tastes like. He's a 4-time suicide loss survivor as well. We are so glad you're here and sharing this, turning the long, dark journey of the soul into 14, guys, 14, 1-4 TEDx Talks. You are the king, sharing his lifestyle insights with corporations and associations. So let's get into it. The stage is yours, my friend.
Oh, I got to talk. Thank you for the introduction, although I wrote it, so I guess I was not surprised. Let's see here. Let me shrink this down so I can see. Yes, welcome everybody. The whole idea behind this is people all the time, coaches all the time, are telling you what you need to do to land a TEDx talk. And I realized, having coached it for a number of years, that there are a number of things you can do that will actually kill your chances of landing a TEDx talk. So if you do any one of these, it doesn't matter what else you do. All that other great advice about how do you get one goes right out the window, and you end up in the dreaded no pile. And here's a reason why. The average TEDx talk gets 2, 3, 4, 5, 600 applications each year. If I'm on the selection committee, think about this. You're on the selection committee, and let's say there are 4 of you. and you got 400 applications, meaning I'm responsible to go through 100 TEDx applications. I'm not looking for a reason to give you an audition. I'm looking for the first reason not to throw you in the no pile and go on to the next one because I've got a lot of these things to go through. So we never want to give somebody on the selection committee any reason, any speed bump, any trigger to where you end up in the no pile because it's heartbreaking. And I would say about 50% of the TEDx talks send you a note saying, "Look, we're not saying you suck. We're just saying you didn't get it." The other 50% don't bother, which I think is rather rude. Why not send out a stock email, try again next year. So I'm going to cover the 6 things I believe you can do to kill your chances of landing a TEDx talk. By the way, I do have 14. My 14th will be on the 4th of July in Georgetown, Kentucky. I don't know if anybody's ever been to the South in the summertime, but as my mother would say, it's hotter than the hinges of hell. My family's always asking me because I live in Oregon now, where it's cool and there's no humidity. And my relatives are, when you gonna move back? Well, when you guys solve this mosquito and humidity problem, I'll be back. So I'll be on stage sweating like George Bush at a spelling bee. But it's my 14th. I'm not going to pass up the opportunity. It's actually my favorite TEDx talk ever. I have actually performed it once before on a TEDx stage, TEDx Durango. However, because it was my 5th TEDx talk, TEDx brought the hammer down and said, no, no one should have more than 4. So we are not going to put it up on YouTube. I said, well, just send me the video. No, because maybe you know this, maybe you don't. They own the video, you own the content. So fortunately, I have some still photographs from TEDx Durango, so I can prove I was there. So starting with number 5 through number 14, they have refused to put it up on YouTube. My workaround on number 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever, I always donate a videographer to the event. So everybody, all the speakers get a third camera angle, and I get a bootleg copy. Now I can't put it on YouTube, but I can put it on Vimeo because it's not public facing, and that way nobody will ever see it unless I send them the link. So it's I hope you never have that problem. Well, maybe it's not a bad problem to have. I hope you have 5 TEDx's sometime and they refuse to put the 5th one up. In Kentucky, they have speaking slots at a lot of TEDx talks, and a lot of people don't know this. Also, performance slots, musicians, stilt walkers, magicians, comedians. So I'm emceeing the entire event, but I'm also doing a performer's slot. And the talk is, and by the way, TEDx Durango did not make me audition for this. They liked the title and subtitle so much that they said, no, just come over here and do it. And I'll share with you when we get to that point about being creative, what the title and subtitle was. So I'll be there and it'll be on, I'll be in front of the big red letters. I'll have a copy of the video. It'll never appear on YouTube, but that'll be number 14. So, and the odd thing to me is if you ask the TEDx folks, tell me about TEDx. Well, it's an idea worth spreading. And, well, it's not about the speaker, it's about the idea. Well, if it's not about me, then why are you not putting those mental health TEDx talks up on YouTube where they could help people? So it seems a bit, I don't know, ironic. They won't post my very helpful, TEDx talks. But that's all right. I got a copy of everything from number 6 on. So let's get to the number 1 thing. And by the way, you can put questions in the chat. Are you riding the chat, Nicole?
Yep, I got the chat open.
Okay. If somebody puts a general question in there or says something like he's talking too damn fast, just let me know. By the way, when I do comedy, I did comedy starting in December of 1985. I did 2,629 nights in a row on the road with no home. That's 7 years and change. 7 years of beer bars, pool halls, and honky tonks and drunk idiots screaming, tell us some jokes we can dance to. Okay, here comes a slow one you can slow dance. So that's how I began my speaking career in comedy clubs. And my wife, my girlfriend, when we left town to go on that road trip, shortly thereafter became my wife and is still my wife, which Most comics have at least two or three marriages. I had a previous marriage. I married my high school sweetheart. Wonderful woman, just had nothing in common. But you know what they say, opposites attract. She was pregnant, I wasn't. So, uh, so I started out in comedy. And I did, starting in 2009, did cruise ships, stand-up comedy on cruise ships. And you have a lot of people who cruise over and over and over again. So rather than do an off-the-shelf routine, I did what they call audience work, where I chatted with the audience. And I opened it up by saying, hey, this is comedy and conversation. If you got a question, raise your hand. If you want me to slow down, raise your hand. If you didn't get a joke, raise your hand. And sure enough, first time I did that, woman in the front row put her hand up. I go, you didn't get the joke? Uh-uh. I go, okay, here's the setup. That's what they call it, setup. I gave her the setup. The audience is beginning to laugh. I gave her the punchline. She laughs, place explodes. So I like to bring down the fourth wall because I have trouble sometimes when I go off on a tangent. Pro tip, if you go off on a tangent and you can't find your way back, ask the audience, hey, where was I? And somebody, if you brought that fourth wall down, you were talking about the Waffle House. Right. Now, some speakers build in those moments of forgetting. And people have asked me, did you do that on purpose? Did you forget on purpose? Yeah, oh, yeah, it was on purpose. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. But I had a long career. I've done 166 cruises, and it's a great way to see the world. Been to all seven continents, including Antarctica twice. Now, the number one thing you could do to kill your chances of landing a TEDx talk is two words. TOO, too much. And by the way, one of the links in the chat is a link to a PDF that has um, all the information on all six things. You don't have to take notes. It's all in the PDF. Too much. Too much about one idea. No, I'm sorry. Too many ideas. I'm sorry. That's number two. Number one is too much. Too many ideas. I think I already mentioned it. TEDx is one idea worth spreading. And the beauty of doing a TEDx, especially early in your speaking career, is it forces you into a speaking lane. I'm a big believer that you need to pick a speaking lane. Wealthy speaker coach Jane Atkinson, I think that term came from her. Pick a lane. You want to be the expert or the thought leader on a particular topic. Nowadays, meeting planners want to see this sentence in your promotional material. Frank King is an expert in suicide prevention. So one of the great things about a TEDx is it forces you to pick one idea, hopefully the one you're most passionate about, and you can ride that. You can think, well, this is what I want to talk about. Now, if you have more than one topic, don't throw the rest out, but pick a primary topic, like the one you do for your TEDx. Everything else can be a breakout or workshop. Because you know what I discovered? At conferences, there's maybe two, three, four keynotes and dozens and dozens and dozens of workshops and breakouts. And I charge the same thing for either. Pro tip, I'm not charging for the 45 minutes plus 10 minutes of Q&A. I'm charging them for a calendar day. So if they push back on my fee, I say, yeah, a woman said to me, $7,500 for 45 minutes and 15 Q&A? I said, no, no, no. No, you're paying me for 7 years of beer bars, pool halls, and honky tonks and drunk idiots. And B, you're buying me for the entire day. How about this? I'll do a keynote in the morning and I'll do a workshop or breakout in the afternoon. So rather than lower my fee, I raise the value because if I do a workshop or breakout, they don't have to hire somebody else to do that. So rather than lower my fee, I raise the value of my appearance. So I would recommend you sell yourself by the calendar day. And I tell her, look, I'll do a keynote, I'll do a breakout, I will acid wash the pool at the hotel. I don't care. I'm yours. It's a personal services contract. Whatever you want me to do that day, I'll do. So, pro tip, charge by the calendar day. Now, too many ideas. So you need to begin to sort and filter and figure out what are you most passionate about. And if you grab a spot on my calendar and we talk about this, I'll ask you, what are you most passionate about? And most people have a couple things. And so next step is you and I figure out, okay, now which one of these two things you're passionate about is more marketable as a TEDx? And that's the first one we pitch. And my students, I work with them until they run out of ideas. There's no 12-month, 18-month, 2 years. I've got a client with 3 TEDx talks. Thank God he finally ran out of ideas. But yeah, we did three in a row, and and each one took a different amount of time to get an audition, but we ended up with three. So you need to decide which one is the one you're most passionate about and which one is the one that's most marketable as a TEDx. Pro tip, TEDx is looking for a couple things. TEDx is looking for either a new idea, which are few and far between, or a great twist or a new perspective on an old idea. One of my talks is Mental with Benefits, the evolutionary advantages of mental illness. Because I kept bumping into people who had a mental challenge, but they had some other amazing ability. Singers, writers, comics, that, they had this challenge, but the flip side of that was just something that their peers didn't possess. And I did it for kids. I actually did the TEDx talk with children in mind. Because if we could convince a child, yes, you have a mental disability, but here's what they probably haven't told you yet. You may have a mental ability your peers can't touch, which I believe would reduce bullying and stigma and hopefully eventually youth suicide. If we can convince the child and his peers that, this kid he may be weird, but he's also very special and he can do these things that not many people can do. So the new perspective is mental health isn't 100% bad thing. There's a good side as a matter of fact, I realized somewhere in my comedy career that I believe my comic ability, imagination, creativity is just the flip side of my major depressive disorder and chronic suicidal ideation. Same brain, same wiring. How could it be any different? So it's a bit of a blessing and a curse. There's a reason I think the way I do. I can teach you to write stand up, and I have taught stand up. I can teach you to perform stand up. I can help you put funny in your keynote or workshop or breakout. What I cannot do is teach you how to process the incoming information the way my brain does. It just turns things around without me thinking. I oftentimes in a comedy club, somebody would heckle me, and I would say something back instantly, and people would come up and go, "Man, how'd you think that up?" I go, "I didn't think it up. When you heard it, I heard it. It just came screaming out of my mouth. I didn't consciously think anything, but it's just something in my brain that does." So I believe, and this is the different perspective, that there's a downside, obviously, to mental illness, but I believe there are benefits to. Did you know that people with dyslexia have better peripheral vision, and they also have an amazing ability to spot the anomaly in anything? What's different in this picture? So my joke was never play Where's Waldo with a dyslexic for money because you're going to lose because they're going to spot Waldo, boom, right away. And there are other mental illnesses that have positive aspects so what used to be back in the day, the caveman cave women was an asset became in our time a disability. So that's the different perspective on. I've got another one. Depressive realism. Maybe the glass really is half empty. There is some science that people with depression see the world more clearly and accurately than people who do not have it. There's something called a negative cognitive bias. That would be the depression. But there's also a positive cognitive bias, which leads people without depression to focus on the upside and less on the downside, what could possibly happen. So that's, again, different perspective on an old issue. So a new idea, few and far between. A new perspective on an old idea. Now here, I believe, is the linchpin, one of the keys. The third thing they're looking for is put one of those first two together with a great backstory. They love a great backstory. If you watch America's Got Talent, they have amazingly talented people on there. But almost all of them have something in their background, some backstory that is compelling. He was jailed for 35 years for a murder he didn't commit. Every day he sang his goal was to be on America's Got Talent. He got released. Here he is. That's the backstory. Now, Ted will tell you your story is not a TEDx. A TEDx is not your story. Here's what they don't say is your story is part of your TEDx. Each one of my TEDx talks begins with my origin story. Nothing, I can't change that unless I went back in time. So, an origin story and a new idea surrounding mental health. So you need to figure out what your origin story, your backstory is. So roughly the first third of your talk should be your backstory. In my case, depression and suicide run in my family because people wonder, a comedian talking about suicide. So I start off, I come right out of the gate. I know what you're thinking. I know what the elephant in the room is. A comedian talking about depression, thoughts of suicide. How does that work? Runs in my family. It's called generational depression and suicide. And then Nicole gave you the rest of my bona fides on mental health and mental illness. So, and I talk about, and there's not only have I come close and lost four people to suicide, my mother and I found my great aunt had died by suicide, and I was 4 years old and I screamed for days. It's a gruesome story, but it's in my first TEDx talk. Matter of fact, I auditioned that part of the story. It was in Vancouver, British Columbia. I had to fly to the audition, but I knew if I did it in person, they would it had greater impact. And I had 5 minutes, and I told that story about finding my great aunt. And I mean, when I got done, they were, and they were supposed to ask 5 minutes of questions. They had 10 minutes of questions. So anyway, your story is part of a TEDx. And I believe it should be the first third. The middle third, first third, hero or heroine's journey, to put it simply. The middle third is your insights from that hero or heroine's journey, your insights and your successes. So, as Judy Carter would say, friend of mine, comedian and speaker, messes and stresses first, insights and successes second. And then the last third, and this is what the committee really cares about, the selection committee, is you teach them something. Like teach them how you overcame all that stuff in the first third. Based on your insights, you teach them how-tos, 3 to 5, depending on how long your talk is, how long the TEDx is. And by the way, used to be most TEDx events, they let you go 18 minutes. 18 is still the stated limit. But nowadays, most TEDx events, they're trying to keep you between 10 and 12 minutes or less. My last three were 7, 8, and 9 minutes, respectively. I mean, you got to do a job of editing to give a backstory, insights, successes, and then teach them something in 7 minutes. It can be done, but it is a challenge. So 18 is the stated limit, but nowadays, chances are you're going to get 10 to 12 tops. So that's the structure of a TEDx. So they like a new idea, a new perspective, and a great backstory. So be thinking about your backstory. The more compelling, the better. The second thing you can do to kill your chances of landing a TEDx talk, and I mentioned this earlier by mistake, is too much about one idea. They don't want a thesis. They don't want a dissertation. And you know this because when you look at the average TEDx application, it'll say things like, give us your idea worth spreading in 3 sentences. Give us your idea worth spreading in a 90-second video overview. Pro tip, if they say 90 seconds, do not give them 91. Because I mentioned earlier, I'm looking for the first reason not to give you an audition and throw you in the no pile. And if I see your video went 91 seconds when we asked for 90, boom, no pile. If they ask for 3 sentences, don't give them 4. If they ask for 250 characters, including spaces, don't give them 252. Make sure you follow the rules to the letter, maybe even a little under, because I had a client and they wanted a 60-second video overview. His turned out 68 seconds. And he thought, well, 8 seconds, what's that? They said to him, it's too bad. It's a great idea worth spreading, but you went 8 seconds over, and we got 14 people that day going up on stage, and every one of them has to be able to follow directions. Otherwise, it's going to be like herding cats. So make sure you stick to whatever they ask you. Don't give them more. Sometimes they say, give us your TEDx idea in the form of an elevator pitch in 8 words. Again, a real challenge, but with the help of chat, take these 15 words and make them 8, and give them 8 words. That's the worst I've ever seen is 8. How do you, or give us your bio and your idea we're spreading in 250 characters. Not much of a bio. I was born and I'm now 69. And then my idea. So that's how you know that they they want you to be brief. They figure if you can sum up your idea in 3 sentences or 90 seconds or 8 words, you can perform it anywhere from 8 to 18 minutes. And if you cannot, then chances are you're not going to be able to stick within the guidelines, the time guidelines. So I think that's one of the reasons they do that 90 seconds, 3 sentences, 8 words, to make sure you can boil it down to whatever amount of time they give you. So number one is too many ideas. And by the way, that should be something you watch out for in your speaking career. If you go to my LinkedIn profile, I talk about one thing. I am selling one thing. I'm not saying I'm a speaker, I'm an MC, I'm a comedian, I'm an auctioneer, although I am all those things. It's all about landing and leveraging a TEDx. Pro tip, the profile on LinkedIn should not be mostly about you, your credits. It should be about, I believe, what the potential client is looking for. And I do it in a series of questions. Do you want to land a TEDx? Question mark. Have you applied for TEDx before? Question mark. Have you been turned down for TEDx? Question mark. So it's a series of questions. You're joining the conversation in the client's head. Yes, I'd like a TEDx. Yes, I've been turned down before. Yes, I never heard back. The last couple of words, last sentence is, would you like to learn how to do that from a guy with 14 TEDx talks? So the only thing in that profile about me is that last short sentence about the 14 TEDx talks. Everything else, I've got a client who's a mason, a bricklayer. And his opening line in the profile, in the LinkedIn profile is, do you want to learn how to recruit and retain top talent in construction, which is a big problem for the construction industry? And I don't know what comes next in his profile, but that sentence alone is enough to make somebody who's having trouble staffing up with construction workers slow down and pay attention. So profile should be more about them, not about you, and you should be selling one thing. Kimberly Crow says, the confused mind does not buy. So if you got a couple things you're selling in your profile or anywhere, on your website, if they pull it up and there's this and that in your book and that, if you go to my website, it's in the chat, mentalhealthcomedian.com. When you land there, all you see is, are you looking for the best suicide prevention speaker and trainer? And everything on that page and every page that follows is all about suicide prevention. No mention of the books I've co-authored, the fact I'm a comedian. There's a drop-down menu where a comedian, auctioneer, and all that stuff lives. But you want the meeting planner, when they land there, to see exactly what they're looking for. Pro tip, if you serve more than one industry, have a sub-page for each industry. I have a homepage, and underneath that, I've got mentalhealthcomedian.com/construction/agriculture/dental. These are industries that are my ideal clients. Because what the meeting planner is going to type in is suicide prevention speaker construction, suicide prevention speaker dental. I even have one for osteopath. On a whim, I created a page and I got booked to do a national osteopathic meeting. And I asked the woman, how'd you find me? She goes, Frank, I got to tell you, I decided on a whim to type in suicide prevention speaker osteopath, figuring there would be none. And boom, up you came. Pro tip, when they land on your homepage or whatever page, you again want to join the conversation in the client's mind. Had a woman contact me. It was an agricultural banquet. She wanted me to speak on suicide prevention agriculture. And I said, how'd you find me? And she goes, Frank, I got to tell you, I typed in, wait for it, suicide prevention speaker agriculture, up your website came. And it wasn't your homepage, it was the agricultural page. She goes, and then I'm reading the first paragraph and it was just freaky. She goes, do you know what it says? I do know what it says. She goes, I'm reading it. Are you responsible to book the best suicide prevention speaker and trainer in agriculture? She said to herself, how does he know that? That's joining the conversation in the client's mind. You need to make that information about the client. So that's So I'm just passionate about that. A, pick a lane. B, make sure that everything you have speaks to the client's needs. You want to join the conversation in the client's head. So number one is too many ideas. Number two is too much about one idea. And let's see, where's number three here? Mistake number one. Mistake number two. There, three. Mistake number three is, oh, the pitch lacks creativity. A friend of mine named Amy, we were chatting, and I mentioned I'd coach TEDx. And she goes, "Oh, I can't believe that. I just signed up 2 weeks ago with a company called Thought Leader. I think it's now called Leader." And I said, "Well, Amy, it's a good company. It's not a scam. I imagine they'll get you a TEDx. You haven't wasted your money. They've been around a long time. Taylor Conroy, he's got 4 TEDx's himself." And so 3 months later, Amy called me crying. I go, "Why are you crying?" She goes, "Because I've applied 86 times, 86, and I've gotten nothing. No auditions, no callbacks, nothing." And I said, "Well, Amy, I find that hard to believe because A, it's a great idea worth spreading. B, you have a book on Amazon, an honest to God bestseller in a difficult category on that topic. Would you do me a favor? If you don't mind, would you send me the answers to the questions that are on the TEDx application that you're sending them?" And she did. And I looked it over. And you know what? Nothing wrong with it. I's dotted, T's crossed, grammar was good, but it just didn't sing. There was no reason to slow the scroll as you're going through 100 applications. So I called her back. I said, "Amy, would you mind if I put a little, pixie dust, my creative pixie dust on this?" She goes, "Frank, what do I got to lose?" 86 times. So I did. And I sent it back to her. And within 5 applications, she had TEDx Beacon Street, Boston, which again told me the first hurdle is that creativity. The first hurdle is that hook. You need a hook. Pro tip: when you're titling your TEDx, one, if you've got a book, try to make the TEDx title pitch reflect the title of your book, because that goes from having one branding item, book, to 2 branding items, book and TEDx. B, the title, I believe, should be words, English words, we know the meaning of, but I have no idea what you're talking about, because that forces whoever's looking at it to read the subtitle. And if they like the subtitle, maybe they'll read the 3-sentence summary. And then maybe they'll read why you're the person to do this. We want them to read as far down the application as we can get them to do to give you the best chance of getting an audition. So um, the I've got a client who has a 20-year history in AA. He's been sober for 20 years, 20 plus years. And he wrote a book. And the book title was Sober Letters to My Drunken Self. So that was the title. I can't remember what the subtitle was, but he got a TEDx within a half a dozen applications, because drunken letters to my sober letters to my drunken self. It's interesting. I've got a client who had a really aggressive form of breast cancer. She's now 10 years, past that and still alive and well. But one day in conversation, she said to me, and oftentimes a client will give me a title and subtitle. My job is not so much to talk and teach, but sometimes it's to listen, because oftentimes a client will say something that is just ideal, just in passing. She goes, "Frank, cancer saved my life and my other fears almost killed me." Stop. That's the title and subtitle for the pitch. Cancer saved my life. If I see that, I'm on the selection committee, I'm going to slow the scroll and find out exactly how that happened. So again, I try to make the title a little nebulous, so they have to read the subtitle where it explains what it's all about. And then, hopefully they will spend more time on your application. Let's see. I had 2 TEDx talks that I did not have to audition for. I mentioned one at the top of the hour. The first one was Suicide, the Secret of My Success. Counterintuitive. Dead Man Talking. A word play on the movie and book Dead Man Walking. So, and they called me. I said, "Did I get the audition?" They go, "No, you didn't get the audition. You're not going to audition. You're just going to come down here and do that." So again, that drove home the point that creativity is that first hurdle. You got to have a hook, something to slow the scroll. The second one I didn't have to audition for was the one that I did in Durango, Colorado, that they refused to put up on YouTube, that I'm going to be doing on the 4th of July because it's just too good. I got a standing ovation at that event. I would say probably the best one of the day. I mean, I'm bragging, but I don't think anybody else got a standing ovation. So it's called Mental Health and the Orgasm: Treat Your Depression Single-Handedly. They called me and said, no, you don't have to audition. You just come over here and do that. We're going to have you right before lunch to give people something to talk about at lunch. It's my favorite I've ever written. It's got humor. It's got science. It's turns out that men who self-pleasure more than 21 times a month have a 20% lower rate of prostate cancer. So self-pleasure more than 21 times a month, 20% lower rate of prostate cancer. Because TEDx likes science. And by the way, pro tip, if I'm going to say something like that in a TEDx, before it goes up on YouTube, let's just assume this one would have gone up on YouTube, I have to give them a link to a double-blind peer-reviewed study that says men who self-pleasure more than 21 times a month have a 20% lower rate of prostate cancer. They're terrified of junk science. So any fact, figure, medical statement, you have to have a peer-reviewed or double-blind peer-reviewed study to back it up. The local committee will ask you for those links, and you might want to have them available on a doc when you do the audition. So you can just say, let me email you the links. And then the big TEDx corporate, they will ask for those links again. I had a client, she had breast cancer. She decided to not go with the traditional treatments, radiation, chemotherapy. She believed that she turned her play switch back on. She said, when she turned 18, her mom said, honey, you're an adult now. You got to quit playing around. So she did. And then once she got cancer, she decided to turn the play switch back on. And so I constructed for her ways to say that without seeming to claim that turning on your play switch cures cancer. In my experience, in my case, in I'm not, and even a disclaimer, I'm not saying that turning on your play switch cures cancer. I'm just saying it's something I believe helped me cure my cancer. And somehow, some way in her talk, I don't know what happened in her brain, she said it in a way that implied it cured cancer. When I heard it, I just about cried because I knew it was not going up on YouTube. And sure enough, they said, I'm sorry, you made a medical claim and you can't back it up. And so it's not going up on YouTube. One of my jobs actually is to make sure that there's nothing in your TEDx talk or performance that is going to keep you from going up on YouTube, because they go with a fine-tooth comb. And in her case, it wasn't that, it didn't have to be that fine a tooth. I mean, she essentially claimed turn on your play switch cures cancer. So boom, out. Um, the and by the way, in Suicide: The Secret of My Success, I had a disclaimer in there. I said, look, I'm not saying that anybody should choose suicide as a success plan. I'm not endorsing suicide as a plan for your success. I'm just saying that's what happened to me. That's just my plan. What happened was I was with my suicidality. I was married to the wrong woman, my high school sweetheart, wonderful woman, miserable, not selling insurance. I was selling insurance for her dad's company, great business, hated it. I was not going to open mic night. And I had my first suicidal thought, why don't you just kill yourself? And I thought, okay. Second thought was this: I could divorce my wife, quit my job, try comedy. If it works, great. If it doesn't, hell, I can still kill myself. That's why suicide, I had nothing to lose. If I stayed put and didn't go to open mic night, I was going to kill myself sooner rather than later. So I had absolutely nothing to lose. That's how I got, and I've got a friend, same story. She had a great job, good benefits, but her only joy was 2 open mic nights a week. And she starts telling me, and then I got to where I was thinking I should just kill myself. And I said, let me finish the story. And I finished the story. So you decided, well, I quit my job, try comedy. If it works, great. If it doesn't, she goes, how do you know that? Know it. I lived it. It's something entrepreneurs often suffer. They've got an idea and they know it's a good idea, but they're stuck in a job they don't like. It doesn't fit them, and maybe with somebody they don't belong with, and so they're in that. So yeah, that's why suicide is the secret. So I did a little disclaimer. I don't want anybody to think that suicide is a great success plan. Okay, so let's see. Dead man talking. Got the phone call. Suicide secret of my success. Okay, mistake number 4 is hiring the wrong TEDx coach. Now, I'm not saying you have to hire me, but I would say do hire someone that either is extremely creative or they have somebody creative on staff who does nothing but what I did for Amy's application. I took the application, took all her answers, and I made it sing. I gave them a reason to slow down and read the answers and consider giving her a TEDx talk. So I would say when you're quizzing the coach, tell me about the creative process in your coaching program. Who do you have that is handling the creative? Because anybody can, I mean, with ChatGPT, it could cobble together something competent with no ChatGPT and Grammarly with no grammatical errors and so forth. But who on the staff is creative? Now, I myself coach all my clients. I don't find them, sell them, and then turn them over to an expert or another coach. I do all the coaching, and the I guess the reason is I've been doing stand up for 41 years full time, speaking for about half that full time, and I'm mentally ill, so I've got a great creative mind. So yeah, so I but so second, when you're hiring a coach, ask them for 2 or 3 references. Thought leader, it's good company. They put a lot of people on stage. But I was doing a little oppositional research. I called them up to find out what they charge, how they do it. And I said, give me 3 references, you know, email, whatever, phone numbers, people I can contact to see how they liked your services. And the salesperson said, we don't give out references. I said, why not? He goes, because you'll contact them. Maybe you're not really clear on what a reference is. Of course, I'm going to contact them. Yeah, it's so I would always ask for references. And I ask for references from people in my price range. Because people often who are coaches, we coach Tony Robbins and Brian Tracy and they're in a whole different, universe. I want people who are right at my price point. Ordinary people, ordinary speakers at this price point. So yeah, so A, find out if they got somebody creative on staff, and B, make sure you ask for references. I'm not saying hire me. I'm just saying be careful because, as you have probably determined, creativity is a big part of landing a TEDx audition. Now, when you land the audition, pro tip, I coach my students on the audition process because the selection committee often asks the same questions. One, hey, Frank, that's a great idea. What are you going to teach the audience? So my client and I get together and we bullet point out 3 to 5 learning objectives. Well, I'm going to teach them how to, how to, how to, how to, how to. A learning objective is a how to. When I speak on suicide prevention, I teach them how to spot the signs and symptoms, depression, thoughts of suicide, what to say and what not to say, what to do and what not to do, and how to find resources. So they're going to ask you, what are you going to teach the audience? And then oh, that's great. Now, tell us about your takeaways. Takeaways, according to Kimberly Crow, are things that they will do with the information you just gave them. Kimberly says, what is the next logical step for them to do with the information you just gave them? Oftentimes, it can be an assignment. Go out and do this, go out and do that. It can be something as simple as 3 questions. I have a client whose takeaway was he talks about the individuation, which is essentially a midlife crisis. His takeaway was 3 questions. He said, I want you to ask yourself these 3 questions to the audience. Are you living up to your expectations or someone else's? Are you the person you came here to be? And are you doing what you came here to do? Takeaway can be that simple. My takeaway when I speak on suicide prevention is I teach them how to construct a self-care plan because I think everybody, neurodiverse and neurotypical, should have a self-care plan. Things you do every day. Mine is very simple: diet, exercise, good night's sleep, meditation, medication. But I teach them slower than that how to put that together. And one non-negotiable, I tell them, one non-negotiable. And in those items, in those bullet points, diet, exercise, good night's sleep, meditation, medication, My non-negotiable, something I do almost every day, regardless of what else I do, is the working out, you know, exercise. That's my non-negotiable. But that's what I teach them. That's the takeaway. So you don't have to split the atom on the how-tos or the takeaway. Just, good. You've given them good, solid advice. Now, what do you want them to do with it? So, let's see. Mistake number 4, hiring the wrong coach. And there are people out there, I'll tell you right now, that will take your last dime. So be very careful. And there are people out there, coaches that charge $5,000, $7,500, $14,000, $25,000. Heroic speakers. I know Michael Port. I love his book, Book Yourself Solid. And it's not a scam. He's got great information, but it's $25,000. And I think you have to fly somewhere a couple of weekends in the process, meaning you fly, you put yourself up in a hotel. I'm sure it's all good information, and maybe it is worth $25,000. But a friend of mine paid the money. We're still friends because he didn't know I did this. And he said, Frank, when I got to the end of it, I had a great speech. My stage presence was spectacular, the mic technique. And so, but that's what they teach you for 25 grand. They teach you to polish that keynote, teach you stage presence, the mic technique, all the technical aspects of being on stage. I said, well, what about making money speaking? He goes, oh, that's another 10 grand. Okay. Okay. See, here's a problem for speakers in general. And I tell my clients this. You are not a speaker who sells and markets. You are a sales and marketing person who speaks. Speaking is the vacation, is the fun part. By the time I get on stage, all the selling is done. I just get up there and I do my best to change the world. My goal as a suicide prevention speaker is to save a life a day. That's my goal. But to get there, sales and marketing, you have got to apply. I believe you should be applying to 1 to 5 conferences to speak every day of the week, 5 days a week, because it's a bit of a numbers game, just like TEDx. I've had clients come to me and say, Frank, I applied for a couple, 3 TEDx's around where I live and didn't hear, didn't get. But, well, here's the thing. It's also a numbers game. My clients and I get together once a week on Zoom for an hour, one-on-one, and we fill out 2 or 3 TEDx applications a week. And here's people ask me, who gets TEDx? Well, everybody, 100% of the people who showed up at least 3 times a month for the one-on-one hour and sent in at least 4 to 6 applications has gotten a TEDx. It's a matter of showing up and filling out the applications. And now, some have gotten the TEDx in, on the first try, some on the 12th. Average, I'd say it probably takes 24 to 36 applications overall average. But you got to show up and you got to fill out the applications.
I want to interject just because of what you're touching on here with all the mistakes are what you're sharing really is the pro tips. As a stage host and a person who brings speakers on the stage that say they want to get paid or they want a TEDx, with what you're talking about is everything that nobody wants to say that happens behind the scenes to get people onto the stage for one, but two, I know so many people who have paid a ridiculous amount of money to just fill out the application and never even landed the stage because I think, it's such a shyster move, but that's what I love about you is the longevity that you've done this. Can you add a little bit deeper into for the people here, just to, and everybody watching the recording on what happens to those speakers because they don't want to apply anywhere else. They think this is my one thing, but in the background, they can use the digital speaker app and get paid gigs to pay for that coaching. And you're not just coaching TEDx, but you're coaching that's going to change dynamically their output on every stage.
Yes, I teach also how to make money speaking. And the TEDx people go, does it move the needle on your speaking career? And I say, yes, it will. However, of all the ones I've ever done, I cannot draw a straight line from a TEDx to a booking. However, I believe the photograph of you on stage standing in front of those big red letters, TEDx Nashville, as the banner photo on your website and all your social media. So when people land there, the first thing they see is you're a TEDx speaker. it's an authority stage, it's a credibility stage, it still has cachet because not everybody's got one. And you're not supposed to download the video, because they own the video. It goes on the YouTube channel of the event. However, I've downloaded them all, and my sizzle reel, 4 minutes, 47 seconds, is nothing but one TEDx clip after another. So, I'm sure if they knew that, they wouldn't be particularly happy, but it's on Vimeo. They'll never know that listen, if you've got a moral problem, I'm not, I don't want you to do something that, violates your ethics. But, so, and on the idea of fee, I used to charge 5 grand, $7,500 up front. And a friend of mine goes, Frank, listen, how about this? How about let's lower the barrier to entry? 5 grand is a lot, even if it gets financed, because the finance company for coaching, they charging, like the credit cards, 20, 25% interest. Why don't you do this? Why don't you say, look, give me $400 a month for 12 months. That's 4,800. It's almost 5. And it allows more people to get in. And he goes, and I'll sweeten it for them. If after 3 or 4 months they think you suck, they give you 30 days notice and they can bail out and they don't owe the rest of the money, which is nobody I know, no other coach I know that I'm aware of does that. Everybody wants that money up front. And here's the thing, it's 12 months of payments. But my thing is, what's your guarantee? Here's my guarantee that I will work with you until you get your speaking career, TEDx and making money speaking, to where you want it to be, even beyond 12 months, until you get to where you want to be, or we both die trying. So that's, and again, I don't think anybody else has got quite that guarantee, So the, Nicole, I think, because people sign up, it's like New Year's resolutions. I'm going to start going to the gym. They get a gym membership. And in January, they're faithful several times a week going to the gym. And in February, not quite so often. By March, maybe once or twice. And by April, their motivation is gone. And they continue paying every month because they figure, well, I'll be going back. I'll be going back. I'll be going back. So I would say about 85 or 90% of the people that sign up with me are gung-ho in the beginning. And and then I never hear from them again. And it's not like I'm not communicating because, when I post something on my school platform, they get an email. Hey, Frank just put up a list of leads or whatever it happens to be. So I'm not hiding and they're getting email from me. But I think going back to it's a business, I think that, they think it's going to be easy. Here's a pro tip, something that all the other coaches that I'm aware of will not tell you. I know this because I've seen a Facebook ad that reads like this. You can become a professional speaker in 90 days, making 6 figures, even if you don't have any experience. Yeah, if you're selling crack at the back of the room. There's no way in 90 days you're going to be making 6 figures, especially with no experience. People ask me, Frank, I want to speak full time. I say, well, first of all, don't give up your day job. Let's keep working that. Get your health insurance and your paychecks, because it's going to take 18 to 24 months to get to the point where you're doing 2 or 3 $5,000 plus travel or better gigs. Now you're going to sell some of those along the way. And when you book one, you're going to get half the money down to confirm the date. You're not going to pick up the other half until, late this year, early next. I'm applying right now through the digital speaker agent, and Nicole has a link for that. I got woke up this morning to it's 1 to 5 leads a day, and I think I had 3 this morning, 4 yesterday. So I'm applying as I, trying to walk the walk and, practice what I preach. But it's a business, and yeah, it's going to take 18 to 24 months. But I don't think there's another coach on the planet will tell you that. So you need a job, so you can support yourself in the meantime. Because a lot of people do that. If you go to NSA meetings, National Speaker Association, you'll find a lot of people who've been working in a career, some kind, for years, and they decide, you know what, my next career is going to be as a speaker. So as they're transitioning slowly, they're thinking about transitioning out of whatever they're doing now, they are ramping up their speaking career. So the day comes when they're getting 2 or 3 $5,000 or better gigs a month, and they can make the jump. So that's, I would say, keep your day job. Figure it's going to be 18, 24 months. And I'm with you the entire time. As long as you keep showing up, we'll keep working on your career until you get there. Um, I've never broken up with a speaker. Uh,
I love that. And you're not ghosting them. I love that. But what I do want to say is, there's so many speakers out there that just think overnight they're going to be this overnight success without getting on a virtual event or a summit or a workshop or doing lunch and learns or going to the Elks Club and speaking, going even just to networking, you're speaking, you're getting out there. And it's so important to start somewhere and get that experience so you can be comfortable on that stage, because I'm sure it looks like a lot of prep.
yeah, well, and I tell my clients, look, my students, one, you should be speaking at least 2 times a month, either pro bono or for money, or you're not in the game, at least 2 times a month. And oftentimes a pro bono, and I never say free, I say either pro bono or I'll waive my fee. And by the way, if you waive your fee, you need to get something from their accountant that says you waived the fee, because you have to check with your accountant. But I deducted a $10,000 fee off my taxes last year. So pro bono or waive my fee is what I say. And I did a Rotary district meeting a couple Saturdays ago for a friend that I met in Rotary. She asked me if I would speak, and I said sure. And I wasn't expecting anything, in return. And there was a woman in the audience who works at a school as a counselor on the coast of Oregon, and she just got that job, and she's terrified about, suicide prevention. So I'll probably be doing a $5,000 gig. I asked her for 7,500. My wife's driving. She holds her fingers up like this for five. I said, my wife says I need to do it for five. Next time I'll drive myself and make the extra 2,500 bucks. But it was a pro bono. I didn't expect anything, but sometimes there's just one person in the audience who really needs to hear what you have to say. By the way, pro tip, some of my students complain when they do a workshop or breakout and there are only a dozen people there or 2 dozen, and the chairs are set for 50. And I said, look, it doesn't matter how many people are there. What matters is there may have been somebody in that dozen or that 2 dozen who absolutely, positively needs to hear what you had to say that day. And the last time I did one, I did it for travel. It was an electrical contractor association. They didn't have to come out of pocket because they paid the travel. And there were only 12 people at my breakout. But one of those people booked me for a $7,500 gig this past September. So so you need to be speaking at least twice a month, pro bono or for money. I believe you need to be guesting on podcasts in your topic area at least twice a week. SEO is all about keywords. GEO, generative engine optimization, or AEO, is all about credibility. Where do you show up on the web and with whom and how often? That's what the AI bots are looking for. SEO, keywords. The AI bots, credibility. So the more podcasts you do in your topic area, the better your chances of, And if you're not blogging, by the way, I would recommend on your speaker website, you have a tab that says not blog, but article bank. That's the new phrase, article bank. And if you put a post in there, what would be called a blog, here's my pro tip. Have ChatGPT or Perplexity busted into bullet points, as many bullet points as possible, because AI is looking for things it can grab and quote easily, short, sweet, to the point. And then ask Chat, now, after you bust it into bullet points, the next thing I want you to do in this process, give me the 25 most frequently asked questions and answers that meeting planners ask when they're looking to book a speaker on my topic. Again, AI likes FAQs. So you should either have those in your article bank with each article, or you could have a separate tab for FAQs. And if I had a separate tab, I would have 25, 50, 75 questions and answers, because that's what AI is looking for. So just a pro tip. Okay, let's see. The fifth mistake, lack of passion. There's a great book, pro tip. There's a great book called Talk Like TED. Talk Like TED by Carmine Gallo. Carmine Gallo, like the wine, Gallo. And he watched hundreds of TEDx talks. And he boiled it down to 9 things he believes are in every great TEDx talk. And number one is passion. It's hard to be inspiring if you're not inspired. Young woman called me one time, said, I want to do a TEDx on customer service. I said, I can't help you. Well, you're not going to take my money. I can't sell that. I'm not going to take your money if I can't sell it. She goes, why not? I go, look, if you'd said to me, Frank, I want to do a TEDx on the power of empathy in the customer experience. Okay, I think I can probably sell that, but not just customer service, you know. So you need to be passionate. Number two is humor. And number three is a surprise for the audience. And then there are 6 more things I can never remember. I wrote my TEDx talk. I read Carmine's book, actually listened to it on Audible, and I rewrote my TEDx talk. My surprise for the audience was I have my grandmother's suicide note. So I pulled that up on the screen in PowerPoint. I got 2 dozen slides. One of them is my grandmother's suicide note. Now picture this, theater, dark, 300 people. I pull up the note, it falls silent. They think either I'm going to read it to them or they're going to read it. And I had asked a woman I know in LA who's a voiceover actress who lives with depression, would she voice this as my grandmother? And she said, I would be honored. So I put it up, I wait a beat, and then out of the speakers in the dark, my dear children, I am so sorry to leave you, but it can't be helped. My grandmother is speaking from the grave. You could hear the goosebumps pop in the audience. Now, it doesn't have to be that dramatic, but he believes a surprise of some kind for the audience is and 6 more things I can never remember. But I try to, and I'm working with a client to get all 9 things into their talk. So, Carmine Gallo. So, passion. You need to be passionate about whatever it is. And in your speaking career, I believe the same thing. I imagine after meeting me and spending an hour and change with me, you know that I am passionate about suicide prevention, that I want to save a life a day. I mean, that I eat it, I sleep it, I breathe it. It's one of the reasons I don't kill myself. Because because after I get done speaking, there's almost always a line. Because I've been on stage as a man, vulnerable, shared my story, and that gives people in the audience permission to give voice to their feelings and experiences. So sometimes 2 people, sometimes 10. And I've heard some hair-raising stories. And they mostly begin like this. I've never told anybody this. Yeah, I get that a lot. That's how the topic is. So I the, the reason I don't kill one of the reasons I don't kill myself is I feel like George Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life, that because of the people who line up after my presentation and share a story after I've shared mine, like George Bailey, I feel that if I killed myself, that these people would never have a chance to hear my story or me to hear theirs. And so theoretically, if I kill myself, I would take some of those people with me who never had a chance to hear mine and me hear theirs. And so I'm stuck. But being stuck's not a bad thing. Yeah, I mean, I just some amazing. I mean, some of the people I've met in line are this close, you know, to ending their lives. And so hopefully, you know, I did an army base, Fort Irwin, and met the psychologist on base and did a couple of keynotes. And 3 months later, he DM'd me on LinkedIn. He said, Frank, a soldier walked into my office this morning and flat out said, I'm depressed and suicidal, and I'm here because Frank King said I had to tell someone. Excuse me. Uh, that's a little ROI. That's why I'm here. Why I'm still here. So anyway, be passionate about your topic. Mistake number 6, it's simply math, not applying enough. As I said, I got my first one on my first application. Oh, I promised Nicole I would say why I did that first TEDx talk. Because I've been a comedian for 2.5 decades, and I wanted to speak on suicide prevention. I want to be a speaker. I want to teach people something. But I was worried that nobody would take me seriously on anything after 2.5 decades of comedy. So my wife goes, we'll do a TEDx talk. And famously, I said, what's a TEDx talk? It just happened to get an application that week from this TEDx in Vancouver, BC. Filled it out, sent it in, got the audition, did my first talk. So I just did it to prove to meeting planners, speakers, bureaus, whatever, that I could do something serious with humor. My first joke in the TEDx, and it's dark, but that's the nature of the beast. I don't tell jokes per se, because there's nothing to joke about, but funny personal anecdotes. I said to the audience, I did some research on suicide, TEDx talks on suicide. I wanted to see how other people handled it. And that's not a bad idea, by the way. See how other people handled their topic. And don't be discouraged if there's hundreds of talks on your topic. That doesn't matter. Yeah, it's all about that one event. It doesn't matter how many people have covered it before, because they're not going to be at that event. And it's not your take on that topic. So anyway, I said to him, I figured there'd be dozens of talks on suicide on TEDx. And it turns out there were three, just three. And I said to the audience, then it hit me. Well, duh. If you're really good at suicide, chances are you're not going to be recording a TEDx talk. There's nervous laughter. I go, it's okay to laugh. That was a point. So, yeah, be passionate and humor. Definitely have some. And that's one of my jobs as a comic, is to help my clients add the humor to their keynote, their breakout, their workshop, or their TEDx. Okay, number 6, yeah, not applying enough. You need to apply, 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 apply. If you want to be on stage at a TEDx in the fall of this year, you need to be applying now. If you want to be on stage at conferences late this year or first 2 quarters of next year, you need to be applying now. People ask me oftentimes as we're going back and forth about maybe they're going to take the coaching. When should I start? Yesterday. Why? Because conferences have an 8, 10, 12 month, run up. They start 8, 10, 12 months ahead of time. Same with TEDx. It's probably about half that, usually 4 to 6 months. If you auditioned today for a TEDx and got it tomorrow, you're not going to be on stage probably until October. And here's a pro tip. I've never written a TEDx talk before I booked the TEDx talk. Why write something if it's not going to sell? What I did do, and what I'll put in the, here in a minute, I'll put into the chat, is you and I write the answers to the top 25 most frequently asked questions on the TEDx applications, because these questions repeat. And so when we get together, you've got your answers, generic, granted, but your answers already. And then if there's no theme, we just put the generic answers into the application. If there's a theme, then we take your generic answers, put them into chat, and say, now, chat, please make these answers relevant to a TEDx with the theme of the ripple effect. So it's your words, but TEDx chat's trying to figure out a way to make the connection to the theme. About 75% of talks have themes. So, and I will put the link it's a Google Doc. It's a fillable Google Doc. It's the 25 most frequently asked questions and information on how to create each answer, with an eye toward what is the selection committee looking for with this question and what should the answer look like. So while we're doing a little Q&A, I'll put that link in the chat, and you can go there and fill in the blanks. And that way, when you're, whether you hire me or hire somebody else or just do it yourself, you'll have those answers, and it's a lot of cutting and pasting. So it speeds up the process. So yeah, because people, and think about this. My clients ask me, do I have to write the TEDx? Not now, not till you get it. Well, when I get it and they panic, I go, look, when you get it, it's going to be a couple, 3 months before you do it. I'm sure we can cobble it together in a couple, 3 months. Same thing with keynotes. Well, I don't have a keynote. Well, all you need are the answers to the questions they asked you on the conference speaking proposal form. Because we're going to have 4, 6, 8 months to put a keynote together. You just need to put, like a summary and your learning objectives and takeaways and whatever the most commonly asked questions are on the conference submission forms. Okay. Let's see. Mistake number 6. Yep, giving up too soon. It's a long game. It's a last person standing game. It's like comedy. It's same thing. It's when I started comedy, there were 50 of us open micers in San Diego, where I started the Comedy Store. Comedy Store's still there, by the way, 41 years later. And 5 of us, I believe, escaped gravity and have actually made a living doing stand-up and or speaking of the 50. So 10% of us. And here's the thing. We were not the funniest by far. Yeah, we weren't the most talented. My mother would say, talent is neither necessary nor sufficient. We were just the ones who got up, got out on the road, and refused to give up. 2,629 nights in a row nonstop. We had a ball, by the way. Opened up for Seinfeld, Adam Sandler, Steve Harvey, Rosie, Ellen, Foxworthy, Ron White. It was an amazing time to be in comedy. And then the boom busted, and I got into corporate comedy because I have a clean act. So let's see. So should we do a little Q&A, Nicole, here? And I'll grab that link to the.
Yeah, absolutely. So if anybody, this is the time to ask the questions, unless of course you've booked with Frank,
Yeah.
because the links are in there. If you guys need any links, let me know. I'll share those as well. But it should all be in the chat for you. You can save that. But any questions, this is the time to ask someone that's really going to tell you what truly happens with TEDx, because there's been so many unfortunate accidents or mistakes that people have just kind of booked with anybody, just desperate to get on this TEDx stage without knowing what happens behind the scenes. So you guys can put your questions in the chat, or you can just raise your hand, unmute.
Not everybody at once.
Stephanie's got her hand up. So come on up, Stephanie.
So first of all, thank you so much, Frank, for sharing your information and your wisdom. And you're right. There are a lot of people out there that, I've kind of looked up some TEDx things. I haven't applied to anything yet. It's a passion goal of mine. I know that it's not to create a lucrative space in my world, but again, it's the validation and the affirmation that you have an important topic. But I love that you shared a couple things, because some individuals have reached out on LinkedIn and says, hey, I can train you. And you're right. Some of them were up to $25,000 to do this. I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys are crazy. That's absolutely not something that I want to do, knowing that it's not going to, expand my speaking career with a lot more availability. But thank you for sharing some ideas. And this is something that I hadn't heard before on anything about using chat to help you do some research of what event planners want to know about you. The Q&A, that is brilliant. Some nuggets like that. I just want to thank you for sharing that. And then also doing the research on how others have used your topic or have talked about your topic on different stages. How many TEDx stages are there in all reality?
3,000 worldwide and 200 plus in North America.
And I mean, I've seen that there are different variations of them, correct? Like some are college only and some are, they have restrictions as to which ones you can go to for various reasons, correct?
Yes, there are some that are geographically restricted, like TEDx Chicago. You have to, at the very least, live in Illinois. TEDx San Diego, got to live in San Diego County. Salt Lake City, the 3 counties around Salt Lake.
Okay.
There are some that are TEDx women. I imagine I could do it in drag. But here's a pro tip. They have TEDx High School and TEDx Youth. Now, a lot of people figure if it's TEDx High School or TEDx Youth, it's just for kids. But I've got 2 TEDx High Schools and 1 TEDx Youth, because high school or youth means there's oftentimes, unless they say 18 and under, means there's 1 youth and 1 adult organizer. That's what the youth or high school designates, unless they say, look, you got to be under 18. So, and that means fewer people apply to those, fewer adults apply to those, because they figure it's for kids.
Yeah, but if your topic is something that supports that age group, I mean, does it mean that that's the audience?
Well, the audience is like at the high school. I did did one in New York, Scarsdale High School, and the audience is about half high school students and half adults.
Yeah, but if your topic is applicable to whomever, then that would be a great opportunity.
And you would want to, in that case, make sure that there was information for adults and information for young people. Age appropriate for each group. Yeah, so there are restrictions on some, and some say just students, alumni, and faculty at a university. So some are limited in that way. You should always check with your university, wherever you went to college, and see, hey, do you guys have a TEDx? Because you never know. A lot of times they're attached to a university.
Awesome. Great. Thank you.
I also put in the chat, by the way, I went to I put in the chat earlier, there's a group called Keynoters. It's a free speaker networking group. It's the remnants of Impact 11, which is a coaching outfit that went belly up because one of the owners absconded with $4 million. There's 240 of us now. Meet on Wednesdays at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's free. It's a brainstorming networking. And I went to the first live event in Nashville earlier this week, late last week. And I put in the chat, let's see. Yeah, there's the it's keynotershoneycomb.com.
I can put that back in there for you.
Yeah.
Keynoters Honeycomb.
Yep, 6 things. And oh, and also put in examples of 3 video demos every speaker needs. This was a revelation to me. There was a guy there named Aaron Knipp, Knipp, and he does nothing but speaker videos. And I think he's got like 1,000 clients. And he's meeting with meeting planners all the time and asking what they want. What are you looking for? He said, as you can see here, there are 3. There's a demo or sizzle reel, number 1. That should be your lead video. And he says, Frank, it's like this. It's like a dating app. You need to appear attractive and desirable in that sizzle reel to get that first date, meaning in this case, a phone call with the meeting planner. So you need to, United is on dating apps. Don't put your high school picture in there. So number 2 is an event sizzle reel, 3 to 5 minutes where you're at an event, not just necessarily on stage, but backstage, shaking hands with the audience, B-roll at several events. The third one is a keynote sampler with very little production, just transitions between the keynotes, and it's little slices of you on stage doing keynotes with maybe a wipe or a fade between, just something to transition from one. So the most production heavy is the sizzle reel. I've got music, 3 different songs, effects, it's fast. The second one, sizzle reel of the events, not quite so much production. The last one, just one slice of keynote after another. So just a goal. That's my goal, is to have all 3. I've got number 1. I got to come up with number 2 and number 3.
So let me ask, so I produce videos and commercials for people. Is there anything like, especially if they're on virtual stages and they don't have anything that is maybe live at this moment, and they've got to start somewhere, they want to just start banking what you have and your resources. Is it just like that kind of fancy intro, and I can just slice some video out of a great performance at that time of where they're really standing out and shining?
Well, I tell my students, look, a video is better than no video. I dummy up a speaker summit. I have 3 group sessions a week. Wednesday, I teach them something. Friday is Ask Me Anything, and Sunday is Spotlight. So when they need video, especially if they have none, I dress up, put a tie on, lose the TEDx background, make it look like an office. And I say, welcome back to the 6-Figure Speaker Summit. Our next speaker is Nicole, and give the introduction. And they do 10 to 20 minutes of their talk. And then when they get done, that was fabulous, Nicole. Now, what do you say we take a bio break? I'll meet you back here in about 5 minutes for our next speaker. So it looks like they're in the middle of a virtual speaking event. Mm-hmm. And that qualifies if that's all you have for your demo.
Right.
Now, bear in mind, you can put summit footage on there, podcast footage on there if you're in a podcast, particularly good podcast appearance, especially if you're live in the podcast. But even if you're at a distance. So podcast footage, summit footage, fake a summit footage. And the B-roll, what I recommend is you have video, maybe a summit or a podcast where there's no audio, but in that 3 to 5 minutes, you fly in, your audience will learn, and then line out one right after another. Signs and symptoms of depression, signs and symptoms of thoughts of suicide, what to say and do, what not to say and do. So somewhere pretty deep into that 3 to 5, over top of video with no sound, you fly in your learning objectives. So when the meeting planner's looking at it, they know you're not only good, but here's what you're going to teach, because that's what meeting planners care about. What are you going to teach the audience? Pro tip, your speaker homepage should be, I believe, photograph, video, see Nicole in action if you have one. If not, couple 3 short testimonials, maybe a sentence or 2 from each of 3 testimonials. Makes a great paragraph. Below that, 2 to 3 paragraph summary of your talk. So photo, video, or testimonials, summary. Below the summary, learning objectives, takeaways. Below that, your bio. Yeah, benefits to the meeting planner above the bio always, because that's what the meeting planner wants to know. What's the ROI for my audience?
Okay. So and people can start like with the page from like digital speaker app. Seeing that there is a web page that gets built out for you when you're applying for that. So there's somewhere to start, right? That's a good place to have like, hey, I've got something to go, because there's a lot that everybody's like, I gotta put this all together. I'll get to it this someday, and the someday is not on the 7-day calendar, right? So just starting without the overwhelm to say, hey, I've got some clips I can get in here from the stages, the podcasts, the webinars, the workshops, whatever, a couple great clips. And then, you get on that digital speaker app, and they build out a little website for you, and it's got your topics on there.
Yes. And one of the great things about that digital speaker agent is for each client that you apply for, it creates your learning objectives, attendee benefits, audience challenges. So it's doing the heavy lifting for you. And by the way, Mark LeBlanc, former president of NSA, I heard him speak here in Portland at the Oregon chapter of NSA. He said, my problem, Frank, is, or to the audience, is all these speakers getting ready to speak. He goes, you don't need a website, you don't need a video, you don't need a one pager. And he's right. Oftentimes they don't want a video on that conference application, or nobody's asked for a one pager in forever. And if you don't have a website yet, just make sure your LinkedIn profile screams, I'm a speaker on this topic and this is what I can do for you. And put your URL from your LinkedIn, because it is essentially a web page. So don't wait. Don't wait to have a video, one pager, and a website. Start applying now.
Yeah, and you could pin everything on LinkedIn. So if you have video, you can even a clip from appearing as a guest. I do it all the time with events, and you can share that on your featured post.
Yep.
There's just simple ways to start somewhere so people see things, and then you're applying all the time. So when that digital speaker app puts the application together, and you can tweak the wording for your speech, but that gives you kind of that headspace of putting the intent and taking the action out there of doing the thing, and then booking you and say, hey, I need a speaker coach because I really jumble my words together.
Yes, and digital speaker agent, you do need a website, a speaker website for that, because when you sign up, you put in your speaker web page URL, and the tool scrapes your website, and it builds out your learning objectives, takeaways, audience challenges, what problem you're solving, and it gets your keywords. And it also goes out on the web and looks for other things about you, like publications. I was amazed when I got there. I go, yeah, I was in Forbes 3 times, because a friend of mine worked for them, and put me in there. But it picked that up. So it not only scrapes your website, it goes out and looks for other things about you. But again, you need one lane when you sign up for the digital speaker agent, because a confused mind doesn't buy, and a confused digital speaker agent has trouble if it doesn't know exactly what it is you do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and it picks from everywhere. So use the AI for good, right? Instead of saying, "Hey, I got a complaint, AI is taking over the world," but this is part of, if you want to get ahead of the bots or be friends with the bots, then you can use digital speaker agent, and it scrapes everything in your Myers-Briggs, and it takes your
Yeah.
reels. And even if you don't have everything to start, you can also add it in as you go along. So there's a
Yep.
lot of things I'm learning about that, which is so eye-opening when it's like, okay, what do I really need to do to get to be the top person and get my 15 minutes of fame? That's a lot of work that you've got to put in to get to that point, but you can start somewhere, and that's the great way to just start to organize and put out what you have, because we all have tons of stuff in the computer hiding in a box somewhere, right? Of how wonderful we are.
Yes. And back in the day, it would take like an hour and 15 minutes to fill out one of those speaker proposals and customize it to the client, to the event, and to what you could do for them. And now, you know, you can probably fill out 6 to 10 an hour using the digital speaker agent because it's a lot of click, click. Oh, there's a speaker proposal form. Autofill, click, and it fills out the form. Now, if it doesn't know something about you, like how long do you want to speak, 60, 90, or 120 minutes, you have to, maybe a box or two, you got to make sure there's something in it. But other than that, so yeah, it's a marvel.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. There's just so much going on in here, and that just helps. And that's what I loved about even just meeting you in the digital space at Speakers Playhouse, and of course in person. But that you have all this behind the scenes that you've experienced in your career and your stage is to share with people all these nuggets and these tips. And you're going to be there tomorrow. You're not going away. You have the group, you support people. You're so easy to get a hold of and just reach out to, so you people can ask you questions. There's a way to connect. You don't have that,
Yeah.
wall between you.
One last tip, and I just did this the other day. Potential client, she's a little bit woo-woo. She talks about intuition and auras you know, and so I took 2 of her videos, transcribed them, and I put them in a chat and I said, now tell me, is there a market, a corporate market, association market, speaking, for this topic? And it came back, yes. However, it's going to need to be reframed. And it reframed. It said, this is what she has now. This is what the reframe should be for corporate. This is what she has now. This is how you reframe it for corporate. So there's the beauty of AI. Because I wasn't sure, because it's a little woo-woo. There's a market for that. But, intuition, yeah, gut feeling, a little more corporate. Anyway, it went through chapter and verse. Here's how she needs to reframe each piece of this to pitch to corporate. So
I love that because we may be speaking the same language, right? Your intuition, your gut feeling, your focus. If you're an athlete, if you've got that gut feeling to push, or you've got that drive to push more, right? And what are you focusing on? Intent, intuition. It may just be reframing it, and that's such a great takeaway, because even on the app I was looking at, and I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm ready to talk to these types of people, but it's just not faking it or saying, yeah, I have that experience, but maybe I do. We're just using a different type of language.
and you could take it one step farther and say, now that we have that, tell me the industries that would pay me to talk about this, that have a problem I can solve. Again, chat, and it'll list out the agency, the industries it thinks would be good potential clients for you.
Yeah. Yep. More notes, more notes. You guys, thank you, Frank. You guys, we have uh there will be a replay for the people that came in the room. And if you're on the Voice Lab, you'll definitely get the replay. Will be up forever and ever and always in the Voice Lab on the school platform. And that's just so you want to get seen and heard. So check that out. That's in there. Tomorrow is just a few things. Tomorrow is Potapalooza with Kimberly Crow is a host. So if you guys want to be a guest, get on several podcasts. I did the very first one they did. I think I interviewed over 8 people just back to back to back on a long day. It's a great way to be an interviewee, be a guest, get out there, get a whole bunch of podcasts done and taken away in one day. You can hit your goal for the month. Check out the digital speaker app. I put the Talk Like TED. There's a link. You can go to Internet Archive. They have an online document, and you could just read it if you're an online person, or buy the book. And if you want to get on the Pain Point podcast, schedule with me. I want to chat, get to know you. If we haven't had a chat, it's all about solutions to people's virtual business pain points, right? And what do you solve? Like Frank King right here, he solves for the solution of coaching online in a virtual space. So it's just a different way to flip that over. And all Frank's information is here. Thank you so much, Frank. And anything else, any last questions, guys?
one last note for me, and let me, if you don't mind, I'll share my screen for a second.
Of course.
Remember I talked about SEO versus GEO? Because I have been blogging and busting it into bullet points and adding the 25 most frequently asked questions answered, this is a chat search for top suicide prevention speakers dental. And these two guys are dentists. So that's why the blog and the bullet points and the frequently asked questions, because more and more searches for speakers are happening on AI.
Ah, yes.
And I wasn't here before I started blogging and busting it up and frequently asked questions and so forth and so on.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Oh my
Oh,
gosh,
yeah.
so much information. I know. I'll put the transcripts out there and we'll get some information too. So, oh, Robert, I got a question.
Yeah, so now I have a question. Is that prevalent in like dental patients that there's a high suicide rate?
No, dentists.
I mean, dentists, yeah.
Yeah, dentists, veterinarians, physicians, and attorneys have a very high suicide rate.
Amazing.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. They go to professional school. On average, they come out of professional school with $500,000 in debt before they open a practice. So financial stress leads to physical and mental stress. So stress is suicide is not just the result.
Right.
So stress is what drives them there.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for the
Yeah.
presentation. Learned a lot.
My pleasure. Thank Nicole. She met me in person and still had me on.
We had a great conversation, right? We had a great conversation and just an easy person to talk to. And that's what I love that's the uniqueness that stands out in this time of AI. And that's what is the blessing of a TEDx stage is you can be you can be original, right? You can come out and offer some type of uniqueness and problem solve and provide solutions. So if you're all about people taking action and you want them to do something good, like I'm a chairwoman of confronting domestic violence, I want people to learn about that and do something good. So that's my objective. That's why I hold stages, get past into post-traumatic growth, instead of being in that nasty mental health state all the time. You have to work over it. So there's so much out here that we can do just by being on the stage. And hey, you can even have a chance to get paid down the line too, if you guys want to check out the digital speaker app. Thank you, Frank, so much for this. This is awesome. Awesome. And I don't see anybody else's hand up. If you guys need anything, any of the links, remember to save your chat. Thank you so much for being here, for being part of this, and go out there, get paid, get on the TEDx stage, and book your appointment with Frank.
Because I'm fun.
Yes, that's it. That's it. Thank you, guys. All right. Have a great day. Look forward to hearing more from you, seeing you on the stage, seeing the events that you're on. Next week is Plot Twist, you guys. So if you want to hear more about those authors, doing the thing, what are they doing about their books, about their book journey, and what's going on. And Thursday, I have 5 steps to lead a high impact event. I'll share that here as well. It is free to join, but it's all about doing an event like this. What can you do to move the needle in your business? And I don't know where my chat went. There it is. All right. So there's that. And thank you. Absolutely, Heather. You are welcome. You guys, it's all about getting seen and heard and marketing yourself. That's what stages are about and the power of what they do. So let me put that in here as well. That chat, I separated it and I don't know. There it is. Boom. All right. That dyslexia is kicking in. All right. Thank you. Hey, that's what I wanted to ask you. When you do this stuff on the stage, when that dyslexia hits and you can't have presentations. I use presentations. So if I go somewhere and I'm not following or I have an AOL moment and I'm dialing up, those help me come back to the focus. Is there like a trick on that one?
Well, TEDx generally doesn't have a teleprompter. They don't allow you to use notes. My advice is slides, no more than 24. and no more than 12 and no more than 24 words. Images, because I've been lost in the middle of a TEDx, turned, fired to the next slide, and thought, oh yeah. I also write on my hand
Oh, okay.
and make no bones about it. If you watch my TEDx, you'll see me do this. Covered it. Oh, they start laughing. I go like this, Palm Pilot. They laugh. I go, if you're under 50, Google it.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, so there's always tricks, and that's what I love about virtual is I can leave my screen on, go, oh yeah, I did talk about that.
Yeah, but slides, do a dozen slides, and and that, like I said, I've been lost in the middle of it and had no idea where I was going. And click, oh yeah, okay.
So you can use slides, just not like a
Yep.
major presentation. Okay, so
Yep.
I can note to self, this is where I'm at in the conversation, and I'm in public.
Yeah.
The other thing too. Oh yeah, it's not just me talking to myself. All right. Okay. Thank you guys. Thank you. Thank you. And again, Frank, thank you so much for all of this. I love it. I love it. Hope you got that full schedule. Everybody's got on that calendar. All right. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
You're showing up. You're posting. You're speaking. You're doing everything they told you would grow your business. So why is it not converting? Because visibility is only half the equation. Getting attention is easy. Turning that attention into clients takes strategy. VoiceLab was built to solve that. This is where front-end visibility meets back-end conversion. You learn how to get on stages, create your own platforms, and use podcasts, summits, and workshops to grow your audience and generate real leads. Then you learn what most people never build. A system that captures those leads, follows up, nurtures relationships, and turns interest into revenue. Email and newsletter strategy that actually gets responses. Workflows, not just more noise. Real connection that leads to real business. Inside VoiceLab, you are not guessing. You're learning the how. You're implementing in real time. You're building a business that works even when you are not constantly chasing attention. Because here's the truth. If you don't have visibility, no one knows you exist. If you don't have systems, nothing converts. VoiceLab gives you both, so you can stop performing for attention and start building momentum that pays you back. If you are ready to grow your authority, expand your reach, and finally turn visibility into income, join the VoiceLab. Scan the QR code, join VoiceLab group on the school platform, and build the business that actually